If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
For The World Today, this is James O'Neill. 2 children, ages 8 and 10, were killed and 17 others injured when a gunman opened fire from outside Annunciation Church and School in Minneapolis on August 27th. Police said 14 of the wounded were children, with 2 critically injured. The shooter, in his early 20s, used multiple firearms before killing himself at the scene. Officials called the attack a deliberate act of cruelty against worshippers. President Trump and Governor Tim Walz issued statements of grief, while Mayor Jacob Frey described the shooting as unspeakable evil. The attack followed several unrelated shootings in Minneapolis this week. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said he will meet Ukrainian officials in New York this week while maintaining daily contact with Russia. He noted Vladimir Putin appears willing to end the conflict and hinted that President Trump may need to finalize a deal after his August summits with Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. Vice President J.D. Vance said Moscow has made significant concessions, including recognizing Ukraine's need for security guarantees. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine traded drone attacks overnight, with strikes damaging infrastructure in Poltava and Sumy, while Rostov-on-Don in Russia also sustained civilian property damage. The U.S. doubled tariffs on India to 50% to punish its continued imports of discounted Russian oil, a major revenue source for Moscow's war in Ukraine. President Trump's secondary sanctions target Russia's customers rather than Moscow directly. India, one of Russia's largest energy buyers, imported over 1 million metric tons in July despite U.S. pressure. New Delhi insists purchases are economic, but Trump warned they undermine efforts to stop the war. Prime Minister Narendra Modi pledged domestic tax cuts to cushion consumers from sanctions. Denmark summoned the top U.S. diplomat in Copenhagen after reports that individuals linked to President Trump carried out covert influence operations in Greenland. Danish broadcaster DR said at least 3 Americans compiled lists of pro- and anti-Trump Greenlanders and cultivated local contacts to cast Denmark negatively in U.S. media. Greenland, a semi-autonomous Danish territory rich in minerals and strategically located in the Arctic, has long been targeted by Trump, who has suggested U.S. jurisdiction and not ruled out military force. Danish officials condemned any foreign interference, while intelligence services warned Greenland as a target for influence campaigns. ExxonMobil is considering rejoining Russia's Sakhalin-1 oil and gas project after leaving in 2022 amid the Ukraine conflict. Reports say senior executives, including Neil Chapman, held secret talks with Rosneft CEO Igor Sechin in Doha. President Vladimir Putin recently authorized Exxon to reclaim its stake, coinciding with his Alaska summit with Donald Trump, where economic cooperation was discussed. Exxon's potential return depends on terms offered by Moscow and Washington, as well as progress in peace negotiations. The U.S. firm seeks to recover losses, while Rosneft values its expertise. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage vowed that if elected, he would withdraw Britain from the European Convention on Human Rights and scrap Tony Blair-era laws that enable illegal migrants to block deportation. Farage argued that only mass detention and deportations could stop illegal channel crossings. Labour's government condemned the proposal as reckless, warning it would align with the UK with Russia and Belarus. Critics say the ECHR underpins key agreements, including the Good Friday peace deal. Farage's stance highlights frustration with rulings that have prevented deportations, even of convicted criminals, fueling fierce debate on immigration and sovereignty.
And when they're picked up by Border Force give the life jackets back to the French so they can reuse them on the next journey. I mean, we're literally witnessing 2 governments colluding in their support of criminal activity.
This has been James O'Neill for The World Today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And thank you very much for joining us on this Friday in Australia, Thursday in the US. In New York, it's 7 o'clock at the moment, or just after 7, almost 6 past 7. In Australia, it's 6 past 9. And in the UK, it's very early in the morning. You should be asleep, sleeping away and watching us later, which you can do on YouTube and on Rumble. Although we got a note from one of our viewers to say that YouTube in the UK are already block throttling us, whatever that means, but they are throttling us. It didn't take them long, did it? It's incredible that they would just throttle us. In other words, we might have, just say, 500 views. They're going to show it as 5. Doesn't mean 500 people haven't seen it, but 5 will be recorded. And that was what happened to us with TNT Radio and the Pulse, and we were throttled because we know that we had, in 1 month, we had 500,000 views on our app, which took the stream from YouTube, and yet YouTube said we had a couple watching. Interesting. They must really dislike me. I'll call my name, what will I call it? I'll call it Mickey Rourke. No, don't. I mean, Mickey Rourke's making news in Australia. A picture of this dishevelled star. He's turned all raggedy and all that sort of stuff. Mickey Rourke was always like that. He was never, in my opinion, a great actor, but he had notoriety. And at one stage, Hollywood really, really loved notoriety. So anyway, so there you are. So we're just waiting for our guest to pop in. So what we might do, later on in this hour, we're going to be looking at, again, the Middle East, just for something different to do. But it was a terrible part of the world. It's never-ending bloodshed. It's just kill, 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 kill. And mainly coming from one particular country. And you don't have to guess what that is. 140-odd countries in the world are saying, stop, just stop it. And that one country is saying, nope, we're going to do what we like. You can't do that. And Lebanon is being thumped. I want to play this clip. This is Trump's envoy, Barak, says he's told Bibi to give Lebanon a break. Cam, could you play Lebanon?
Let me tell you, Netanyahu, my impression again, just my impression. I spent almost 2 hours with him. My argument was a personal one. I was saying, talking about Gaza is way over my pay grade. You're talking to the President of the United States and Steve Witkoff, who are Secretary Rubio. You have the 3 most important people in the world to talk to about that. I come from your region. I have Lebanese blood, and I'm asking you to do something that I know will do you well and do Jews all over the world well. Give Lebanon a break. Give them a whiff of tolerance and understanding. You can't be apparently so brutal on everybody, of going anywhere, anytime you want, without rationale. It's going to backfire eventually. And you need support teams around you, and you could have Lebanon easily.
So there you are. That's Trump's envoy, Barak, told Netanyahu to give Lebanon a break. And we should. We need to stop it. We need to stop it. Now, we're going to get into we'll leave the rest of this till later on for our next guest. We're going to talk all things, deficits. And we're going to also find out more about this fabulous book from John Tamny, which is called Deficit Delusion, Why Everything Left, Right and Supply Side Tells You About the National Debt is Wrong. John Tamny is author of Deficit Delusion, which is, I've just mentioned, and a great book, by the way, if you want to become educated, which I need to. I've been told I need to become more educated. He frequently writes about securities markets along with tax, trade and monetary policy issues that impact those markets for a variety of publications, including the Wall Street Journal, Investors Business Daily, Financial Times, National Review and the London's Daily Telegraph. John, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I tried once to get on into Sydney Morning Herald. They turned me down, but I'm still trying.
I wonder why that would be. Maybe because you're making sense. You have been in roles that put you in a perfect spot to understand the economic and financial problems the US is facing right now. Can you, in a nutshell, I mean, and I would like to do two parts to this, if you wouldn't mind. One for as a federal issue, and they're looking at your state, California, with Newsom there. So if you could just, and take as much time as you need, but explain the problems facing and how we could fix it in a brief nutshell for the feds and also for California, because California is also a basket case.
Well, California is interesting. It's frequently said that California's best days are behind it, but it's always interesting to be out here. I live in Washington, D.C. most of the time, but you come to California. This one state is where 60% of the world's venture capital flows to. If it were segmented off as a state, as a country, it would be the fourth largest economy in the world. And so California is booming. But with economics, it's always the unseen. What could California be if it had better policies, if it had reduced taxation, if it weren't such a regulatory state, if it didn't have such a massive government to essentially prop up? And that's how I look at the U.S. more broadly. We've got remarkable talent, and we do because American is not a race, it's an ideal. It's an ideal of freedom and hard work that's attracted the best and brightest from around the world. And so to look at America, there's always problems you can focus on, but it's easy in focusing on the problems to forget the fact that a bad day economically in the United States is a great day most anywhere else, that we've got all these remarkable people all over the country. And so it's always about how to make it better, not about how bad it at least. That's how I see it.
Federally, your last administration it has been attacked quite and is in the public domain by Donald Trump, and he's very focused on the bottom line, the ledger, and he's incredible. I mean, around the world. I mean, I don't agree with everything he's doing around the world, but he is bringing a lot of business back into the US. Even with the tariffs, they were scorned upon by the rest of the world, and yet you have at this stage it seems to be all up and up for the US. What's your thoughts on the tariffs and he's I suppose the big beautiful world out there that he wants to get the big beautiful buck from those big beautiful countries such as the conglomerate called the EU. He just signed a massive deal to provide energy to Europe. So your thoughts on the way he approaches being president and making sure that the ledger is always looking good, his attacks on the feds, I mean, all that sort of stuff. What's your thoughts on him? And is he actually, because according to Donald Trump and other experts, the US was in a bit of a spot of bother, as we would say in the colonials, but he is pulling the US out and making America, as he would say, great again. Do you agree with all that?
I get a kick out of Trump, and I think you could make, certainly for his first term, you can make a good free market case for it. But I don't like tariffs, and I don't like tariffs because of what they taught us in the colonies long ago about people dividing up work. How did Adam Smith begin the wealth of nations? It was in a pin factory. One man in the pin factory working alone could maybe produce one pin per day, but several men working together in specialized fashion could produce tens of thousands. Any chance you get to divide up work with talented, specialized people from around the world, I want to take it. I don't think when people send us things, they're ripping us off. They're just acknowledging that Americans are incredibly productive and have the means and the desire to consume a lot of the world's plenty. And so if it had been me, if I were Trump and I had his personality, I would have said, guess what? We're going to zero. And unless other countries follow us to zero, the economies in other countries will fall further and further behind us. With the Fed, I would say we don't worry about the Federal Reserve. It doesn't affect us, and it doesn't because the whole world is lined up to lend and invest in the United States. We don't need to, we're not concentrating on some central bank and what kind of rates it sets. And so I think there's a tendency with Trump to talk about how we're getting ripped off and how the Fed is doing things that shrinks the genius of the U.S. economy and shrinks the reputation of the United States around the world. I don't want to be shrunken. I think we're greatest when we're working with the rest of the world.
Yeah, I also think that. That's why sometimes I don't despair, but I look at Donald Trump, and he does flounder on the international stage. Within his borders, I quite like what he's doing, having lived there for quite a while and worked there also. I found that he's sort of bringing back what encouraged me when I first moved to the States to work in broadcast, was that it was a country that if you rolled up your sleeves, put your head down and your backside up, and you were honest, then that country, that community around you too, they all got behind you. And I found that truly enlightening. And that was one thing that other parts of the world didn't have a whole lot of. And if you look at Australia and even the UK, there was this tall poppy syndrome, that if you achieved something great, then they would chop you down. But in the US, it was different. It was that they supported you. The last administration, it seemed from this part of the world and other parts, that they were sort of almost following what we were doing, and that the people, instead of rolling up the sleeves and embracing free enterprise and a bit of hard work, they were then relying on government to provide them with handouts. And to me, that seemed a complete opposite to what I knew the US to be. Did you find that too? Did you notice there was an inclination to rely on government more than personal expertise?
I think there's a tendency to say that. A lot of people on the right in the United States, and I'm on the right, have a tendency to focus on how bad things are, that Americans are going socialist, that New York City's going socialist. And no. Even the socialists in New York are incredibly ambitious. And you describe it very well. In the US, we don't hate when others succeed. New York is such an interesting example of this. I've often argued that it's a much bigger migratory path from Brooklyn to Manhattan than it is from, say, Mexico to Kansas City. You're taking this major leap, and it's always fun to see all the people thriving in Manhattan who have outer borough accents. And Americans don't mind. The more the merrier, the more successful, the more innovative you are. They don't care where you come from. And I think that describes Americans broadly. Even if handouts were everywhere, we wouldn't take it. Because, I mean, some would, of course, but generally Americans want better, and they would never accept the meager handouts. And I would add along those lines, when people say immigrants are coming to the United States to get handouts, no, they're not. They wouldn't risk their lives to come here for the meager trappings of what government gives them. They want the jobs that are abundant here. And how we know that is the biggest driver of Mexican consumption in Mexico is remittances from the United States. They are here to work, and they want what all Americans want. They want a better life, and I think it's beautiful, and I think that broadly describes the United States, not a nation of handouts. And I don't think any president could make us a nation of takers.
Yeah, when it was interesting. My first station was in a place called Lompoc,
Oh yeah, I know it.
and it was the poppy or the flower capital of the US. And I found it really interesting. I moved to Salinas, which is the artichoke capital of the world, and they had a great number of Hispanics there. Now, I have to tell you, besides some great cuisine, they were part of the community. They got paid less, but they worked very, very hard, and there was never any of this discussion of these illegal immigrants, because they were good people and they worked very hard. My first introduction was I walked down this lane after I finished work, and it was about 9 at night. And in the doorwells were all these people sitting in these doorwells, just chatting, just sitting, as chilling out. And I thought, wow, I feel as safe as I ever have anywhere else in the world. Yet back in, say, in Australia or in the UK, they'd be writing that you've been attacked by a group of banderos and things like that. And it's they actually fit it in beautifully to the community. And I go one step further, that if you didn't have those, Salinas and surrounding areas would not have been the artichoke capital of America or the world, because they did stuff that many Americans wouldn't do, but they actually worked really, really hard. And that's why I find that the illegal immigrant thing, I mean, I understand the concern of bringing in illegal immigrants, but once they're there in the US, and once you receive a handout or a payment of some sort or from the community or the government, I think that the illegality has been diminished because they have been accepted by that particular government. And I don't understand why. I mean, it's all very well saying stop the rest of them coming in, but at the moment you have a number of so-called illegals that have been paid by various governments. And to my mind, if you're paid by a government, you therefore become legal.
Well, I just, to me, if someone loves themselves enough to get to the United States, they've revealed themselves as American, stamped their passport. I never understood this need to stop Cubans risking their lives stopping them at the border. No. They're American. They did what it took to get here. To me, immigration is a market phenomenon. When do they come in droves? When there's abundance and there are abundant jobs. When do they stop coming? I'll give you an example. The borders emptied in 2020 when Trump imposed lockdowns in the United States. Suddenly they stopped coming. There were no jobs. And what I would give, what's sad right now is left and right have politicized what is a market phenomenon. All they have to do, and they secretly know this, is legalize work. Say, this isn't about citizenship. Just announce your arrival. And if you want to fly in, just announce wherever you're coming in. If you've got a job, come on in or come in and get one. If so, they wouldn't bring grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, the wife, kids, and all that. They'd come here seasonally as needed. They would make good money and go back home as needed. We could fix this so easily, but we keep trying to close borders and deport. It's just tragic. Look, if we want to keep Mexicans out, just crush the economy. They'll stop coming. But other than that, if we want to be the growth economy that we claim to be, immigrants will be part of it. In fact, they will help us grow. So let's let them in.
Yeah, and that when I was there, we're talking about 20, 30 years ago, multiculturalism was a raging success. And at the moment, we have, if you look at the UK and parts of Europe, it is being flooded. But once you're in a particular country and the government gives you money to make your life a bit easier in that country, then to my mind, you are no longer illegal. What they need to do is be looking forward to blocking the border, doing something a little more substantial. But once someone is moved to a country and they are good people and they are receiving money from the government and the local councils and stuff, I think, well, the illegality is gone. You are now legal because the government, if they wouldn't pay you, they'd throw you in jail right away or send you back. So I think there is and we all forget that we're talking about individuals, people, and each person has its own demons, its own reasons for being in a particular place. So I think we need sometimes to bring a little more humanity into this. What about the national debt? It's 37 trillion and growing all the time. What are the real consequences of this debt?
They're unseen. To me, the surest sign we don't have a debt problem is all the debt. 37 trillion in debt is the market's way of saying the U.S. will easily pay it off. Yet whether it's left, right, supply side, Austrian school, you name it, libertarian, they all focus on the debt that markets keep telling us will be very easy to pay off. I mean, in 1980, we had total debt in the U.S. of $900 billion, and it cost 11% for Treasury to borrow. In 2025, we have, as you note, 37 trillion, and borrowing costs are about 4.25%. That's the market's way of saying you guys are going to pay this off easily. And so the problem with the debt isn't the debt. It's that the government taxes us so much that it's not a problem for us to pay off. And so I want to know how much further along the US and the world would be if government taxed us quite a bit less, such that there were more investment in healthcare advances, technological advances, transportation advances. And so to me, the crisis is unseen. It's what we haven't achieved because of all this taxing and spending. And the other crisis is not the debt. What the grandchildren will inherit, tragically, is a massive government that they'll need to continue to support. This is what in this weird focus on balanced budgets and debt, they ignore the real crises. And so we keep wasting time on something that markets don't care about, all the while missing the real problem. Government spending is central planning. It slows progress, but it also burdens the future generations with a massive government.
The stoush between Lisa Cook and Donald Trump, where do you see this ending?
Who cares? Look, my view, I've written books about this. I'm not saying I'm right, but I think I'm right. I don't think that what the Fed does matters. The notion that the Federal Reserve controls the price of credit or the flow of credit or its amount is laughable. Central planning failed in the 20th century. I'm not ready to believe that the second most important price in the world, credit, that's other than the dollar, is controlled by the Federal Reserve. I think the very notion is ridiculous. And so you have left and right saying, oh my gosh, if Trump takes control of the Fed, it's over with and the global economy will suffer. Oh, stop it. It will not. The Fed is irrelevant. And so if Trump wants to mess around with Lisa Cook, fine. I really don't care. And so you could make an argument that Trump's being ridiculous. He somehow thinks that if he gets the right people at the Fed, that easy credit will be the result. No, it will not. Markets always speak. But maybe one thing he will do for us with this is he'll reveal yet again how unimportant the Federal Reserve is, that it doesn't matter who's there, that markets have been working around the Fed for decades. It's just not important anymore. It doesn't matter who's there. Markets have moved beyond. And so maybe this will discredit the Fed in the eyes of everyone finally, and we'll be better off for it.
She's going to sue Donald Trump, which is interesting. She should get in line.
Yeah.
Tell us about your book. How does your book point the way forward?
Well, the book it explains. There are no charts and graphs or equations. It just uses real world examples, Uber, Nvidia, Donald Trump, Home Depot, to show that the path to debt is a sign of progress, that individuals who don't take in a lot of money now and who don't expect to have a lot of income in the future can't borrow. Businesses are no different, and governments are no different. The fact that the U.S. can borrow so much is a sign that we're an incredibly prosperous country. The debt is not driving the prosperity, but the debt is an effect of it. And so I'm trying to convince Americans that the only way to bring down the debt is to paradoxically bring down substantially the flow of dollars in taxes every year to the federal government. That's if unless we bring that down, unless we so substantially cut taxes that the rich are paying exponentially less to the government, the debt's going to continue to grow. We have to shrink what the rich hand over so that the rest of the world isn't so eager to lend to the United States. It's a very different argument. The various economic ideologies in the U.S. all say we need more revenue, that we need government spending cuts. I make a case in the book that more revenue will just drive up the debt and that spending cuts will actually increase the size of government simply because they'll free up dollars for Congress to dream up all new programs. And so it's a very different look at the debt, but I think a necessary one.
Fantastic. I actually studied economics for about 15 minutes. It wasn't my cup of tea, although Jennifer, who you've spoken to, was a senior economist, so this is right up her alley, and she would be probably most likely one of your greatest fans. Did you just mention, though, just quickly, that you suggested they reduce taxes? Because if you did, I could imagine at the moment many governments around the world would be running around with a left finger in one ear and the right finger in the other ear going, no, No, because taxes are they cop out. And if you look at the UK, it is throwing taxes left, right, and centre on just about everything. In fact, they've got another tax coming in that will probably be the death knell to farming. In Australia, we have the government has decided that taxes are the way to go. We're going to increase just about everything. In fact, on the Gold Coast where we broadcast, we have a view tax. And the tax is, if you're 5 floors up, your view is taxed and you've got to pay the local government. I mean, how clever is that?
Oh, it's just tragic. What are you in Brisbane?
No, well, just on the Gold Coast.
Yeah. Oh, so near. Yeah. Well, what a tragedy. What a shame. All those talented people. Australia, in so many ways, is like the United States. It has people from around the world. Why would you penalize all their effort in that way? And that's another argument that you're broadly bringing up for my book. I feel like in the United States, if we get rational about this and say that we have a debt problem because we're actually taking in too much tax revenue, maybe it's something that could light a fire around the world, albeit in a good way, that will get people to rethink how they view the taxation and government borrowing, that it's an effect of overtaxation, not too little. And think about how much more prosperous the world would be if we went in this direction. And I'll just add that I wish we would not only just open the borders south of the U.S., but that we could get more Australians too. I lived in New York for years, and there were so many talented Australians prospering and making the U.S. richer. Why we keep the world's most ambitious people out is just a mystery that won't die in my mind, but I'm trying to correct it all the time.
And the challenge was, if you ever bumped into an Australian, especially when they first moved to the US, is that to get the Australian to move his or her lips when they speak, because their lips didn't move. And there was, some people describe the Australian language or bastardization of the English language as one word. It was just a continuous thing. So, but anyway, my first station, by the way, when I worked in Lompoc, I did morning drive there, and after the first week they came in and they said, "Look, we want to talk about your shift. We think you sound great." I thought, "Of course I do."
Yeah.
Bit of a star. Then they said, "But we have a problem." I said, "What's that?" I said, "We have no idea what you're saying."
I love it.
Okay, your book, Deficit Delusion, Why Everything Left, Right and Supply Side Tells You About the National Debt is Wrong. Where can they get that, John?
You can buy it in bulk on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. Buy for you, buy for friends, buy for people you don't know. Hand them out. It's an all new way of thinking that makes a strong case that we have debt because we're overtaxed. We've got to reverse the discussion. Everyone's gotten it backwards, saying that they need more of our money to bring the debt down. That is so incorrect. It's so discredited by history. Let's get this debate, this discussion correct so that we can be more prosperous and freer too. John
Tamny, author, editor, and economic advisor. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. This is
Thanks,
The World
Mike.
Today.
It can all be over in the blink of an eye. Driving tired kills.
Sometimes life can be overwhelming, and suicide may seem like the only way to relieve the pain. Beyond Now is an evidence-based app created by Beyond Blue to help you cope when suicidal thoughts start to appear. You can use it to create an easy-to-follow plan that is personal to you and includes steps like know your warning signs so you can act early, make your environment safe by removing harmful items, activities you can do or people you can be with to distract yourself from suicidal thoughts, reminders of things that make you feel strong. Some of these steps might be tough to fill out, and that's okay. It can be helpful to make or share your safety plan with a trusted friend, family member, or mental health professional. You might feel like you're alone, but help is available. If you're worried you can't stay safe, use the red telephone icon to call your emergency contacts. Download the free Beyond Now app today to create your personal safety plan.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
Before we get into our next guest, I just want to play a couple of some video here, because the Middle East, and our next guest has immense knowledge of the Middle East, but at the moment, Israel is being not very nice to a lot of its neighbours. A CNN investigation has revealed new details on Israel's strike on the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis, which is in southern Gaza. The clip shows that the second strike on the hospital was actually two nearly simultaneous strikes, and it is believed that these second and third strikes caused most of the deaths. A weapons expert explained that the collision of two projectiles at the same moment indicates a possibility that two tanks fired at the target, while the video indicates a highly coordinated attack. Cam, could you play hospital? So there you are. We actually lost part of it, but anyway, it shows you that the hospital, a terrible thing, and last thing you should do is attack hospitals. I just want to show you this also. This is in Lebanon. This is a father carrying his wounded child. Look at the desperation and the look of like this just glazing over. Cam, could you play horrific? Just deplorable, and it's absolutely shocking. Morgan Lerette is an author, former Blackwater contractor and combat veteran. Morgan, thanks for joining us. We spoke before about the horrors of war. Do you think it's about time that they stopped, or are they able to stop?
I mean, I don't want you to get me wrong. I loved war. I absolutely loved it when I was in the middle of it. But you realize at some point war becomes from something that's abstract to something that's extremely personal. And now I'm as big an anti-war guy as you'll ever meet, because every time the US gets into giving weapons to Israel or Ukraine or anybody else, they're expanding the scope of the war, and they're expanding the longevity of the war. And you have to realize, just like you showed in that video, there are people that are actually affected by this. There are people who are not going to have their husbands come home, or their fathers, or their daughters. And that's really what it comes down to, is that we talk about war, we see it on the news, everybody thinks they know it, but until you've experienced it, you don't know how personal it becomes, and how it will affect you literally for the rest of your life. And I think that's the shame of it.
Bibi's been told by Barak, who's the envoy, special envoy, to back off from Lebanon. I mean, Do you see as a specialist in the area that if you attack all your neighbours, one day it's going to backfire because your neighbours aren't going to put up with it, for all that long. And but we hear when I say understand, I understand the rhetoric that they are protecting Israel. I don't understand though, if you're, and excuse my French here, but if you're pissing off your neighbours by killing them all, how it's going to protect your country, because they're going to go, nah, this is just going to stop now. So do you think maybe, that's what I go back to, do you think maybe they should just stop and get on with it?
I think that right now would probably be a good time to just slow down a little bit, right? Like the problem is that it goes back thousands of years. The Palestinians and the Jewish people have hated each other for thousands of years. And if you went to a Palestinian and said, "Hey, you could live in peace with the Jewish state," they'd say, we don't want the Jewish state. And a lot of people in the Jewish state would say the same thing about the Palestinian state. So the hatred and the anger and all that stuff goes back so far that I don't think it's ever going to absolutely end. But to your point, you can't just keep beating up on your neighbors and expect them to bend to your will. I think if there's one thing since World War II that we've realized, well, we probably haven't realized is the problem, is that there's no such thing as a surrender anymore. People just continue to fight. They can fight the terrorist organizations. They can go in small cells. They will continue to fight you over and over and over again. And Israel, in its own self-defense, is saying, well, now we got to reach out. We got to touch these people before they come over. But I think that that's a trope, right? I remember when we were getting ready to go into Iraq, they'd say, oh, you're going to Iraq. Rather fight them over there than have to fight them at home, which is horse crap. They weren't coming over here to fight us. Don't get me wrong. Now, they did come over and attack us, but they weren't going to come over and fight us in the United States. And I think that that's what Israel is in right now, is they're in that we're gonna take out as many as we possibly can, and then at some point they're gonna come to our side, which is never gonna happen. But then again, it's been thousands of years, and I don't see a two-state solution working either.
No. And if they were to attack, I mean, if they decided to attack LA and pop into East LA, war will be finished in 5 minutes.
I mean, they can have part of California. Let's just take the Jewish state, put it in California, and then they can live happily. Although I don't know, UC Berkeley's there, and those college students would probably be pretty mad about it too.
So, mate, you got Newsom there. He's going to save the world.
One syringe at a time.
Yes, it's just and one piece of corruption. I mean, what about those, off the top here a bit, but the wildfires they raised 126 million for the victims, and at this stage, not 1 cent has gone to them, but the money's all gone. Sounds a bit like Zelensky. Give us some money. We need money.
Really profitable if you know Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Let's talk about your book. And I mentioned to you last time, I love the title of it, Guns, Girls and Greed. I was a Blackwater mercenary in Iraq. Let's look at, okay, we'll go each one of those things. Guns. Tell us about the guns.
You know, it's interesting because people would ask you all the time, what kind of guns did you have, thinking that we went over there and we just got to like grab a tank and drive it around, but we were under a State Department contract. So all the weapons that we used, the regular Glocks at 240 Bravos, everything the military had that wasn't a large weapon, right? Nothing above a 7.62 round. So that was always a big topic of conversation, is what kind of gun are you running? What's your optics? I mean, you have to remember in my book, it's a bunch of like 23-year-old, essentially kids doing a crazy job, making a ton of money. And what are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about their guns. The next thing they're going to talk about, of course, is going to be girls. And it's always a hot topic of conversation. Here's what I think most people don't realize is that when you go into a combat situation, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of boredom. And what do you do when you're young and you're bored? You just sit there and you talk to each other and you come up with the most.
You read books. That's what you tell your parents.
That's what I told my parents. And I said, hey, clear my browsing history if I die. All right, guys. But it's just, you and a bunch of your best friends sitting around. It's almost like a campfire scene, right? You and your best friends that are just hanging around and you're just talking. And the topics of conversations were always about guns, the girls you were with or the girls that you were going to be with on your way home, and then how much money you were making. I mean, you have to remember 23 years old, I was making $550 a day. I never thought I was going to make more than like $30,000, $40,000 a year. And all of these guys were the same as me. So of course it's like, what are you buying? What are you doing? Oh, I went on, I mean, online shopping, it just started. Oh, I went on this thing called Amazon and they're sending me a bunch of stuff to my house. So when I get there, I can fix up my truck.
The money wasn't bad. You wouldn't say it was huge money, though.
I mean, $200,000 a year for a 23-year-old back in 2004, 2005. That was
Yes.
that was pretty serious. So I actually did it because somebody said, "How much is that in today's money?" It'd be about $970 a day in today's money.
Well, that's pretty good.
I know. That's why I talked about it so much.
What about the other part of it, incompetence with, because you got your big guns, you got your beautiful gals in the background, you got a lot of money coming in, and then you mentioned a lot of downtime, but when you actually went into action and you did some ops, was there a whole lot of incompetence or was that just part of the whole thing?
You know, it's like any other company when they have a high growth, like a high growth strategy, right? When you have a high growth strategy, you're bringing in as many people as you possibly can. You're making as much money as you possibly can, and you're not worried about the details as much as just trying to find the right people to fit in the job that can get it done. So, from like a Blackwater standpoint, we had some of the best guys in the world. We also had guys like me. So don't don't think we were all awesome, but we had guys that kind of knew what they were doing. But it was such a new mission. Like there was no military mission really where you were protecting diplomats in an active war zone. It was the first time it had ever really happened. So we pretty much just made it up as we went. And this is the days before GPS. You couldn't just type in, "Hey, I want to go to the Ministry of Oil," and then it will take you there. I mean, we had like the old maps, and you have to understand, even the maps that we had of Iraq, they were outdated. They were from like the 1991 invasion that we had. You couldn't tell if there was a street that was open or closed. They closed the streets all the time, or there was a car bomb that blew up, so you couldn't drive on a certain street. So it was mayhem, but we kind of adapted to do as much as we possibly could. Now, from a strategic standpoint, let's talk about the war itself. Absolute incompetence. I mean, it was really watching all these different disparate units, the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, the DOD, the Department of State, every military unit was trying to do their own thing. And the coordination or lack of coordination was exceptionally difficult. So I would be watching the news at night, right? You got the little TVs while you're watching dinner, and it would always be like, "Oh, we're making such great progress," and then you hear a car bomb blow up right outside the gate, and they'd be like, "This just doesn't sound like progress. It sounds like a bunch of people that are just trying to get through their 1 year deployment and get home."
Yeah, well, the information operation was truly underway then. A guy with the British Army called Trevor Coote and also Johnny McNeil, they both fought in Afghanistan. They're very critical of the British government bringing in all the Afghanistanis who helped them during the war because they said a lot of their own troops were shot in the back by the people that were supposedly helping them with, such as the Afghanistani. Your deployment and both as a combat veteran and Blackwater, when you used the locals to help you, to just help you basically to negotiate your way through that particular country, did you find them? Were you always nervous having them as part of your combat team, your platoon, or whether it was a squad or whatever, knowing full well that, as Trevor Coote said, Trevor Coote MC, that they were always nervous then in Afghanistan of being shot in the back? Did you have the same apprehension?
Yeah, you never trust them. You just couldn't. And I think that there's multiple reasons for it. So from like a diplomatic mission, we went out, and I talk about this in the book, but we went out and we were building a new police station. I was protecting the guys that were giving them the money to build this thing. And all we had to do to give this police station over to the Iraqi police was they had to have toilets, and they had to have sinks, and they had to have running water. And they got it installed. That night they stole everything. They just took everything. And then the next day we go in there and we're like, look, we can't sign off on this. The contract can't be signed off on. You guys can't move in. And the Iraqi police officer's like, it wasn't my people. I don't know how it happened. They just disappeared. So we put in new sinks and toilets and you name it. And the same night we did that, they all got stolen again. And it was very myopic from my standpoint, right? You can move in here. You can have your entire police force living here, training here, doing whatever you need. And you can't get past the idea that you're going to be able to steal a toilet, which, look, our toilets and their toilets are not exactly the same. So I don't even know where you're putting this toilet. But at the end of the day, it was all about them trying to make sure that they were going to get their piece of the pie, which I don't blame them, right? They knew at some point the U.S. military was going to leave, that they were going to try to make as much money as they possibly could. All the Iraqi generals that I talked to would always ask the U.S. military guys, like, how do I get out of here? How do I get to the United States? Like I'm saving money, which means, I'm stealing money from somebody else, which is actually my tax dollars, which is a huge bummer. But they were all trying to figure out the way to get out and how do I enrich myself so that I can make a better life. So I don't blame them for that. But at the same time, don't steal my toilets, for the love of Pete.
So they were a little flushed with success, right? So they were terrible.
They would wash their hands with it.
Shocking. Be careful which hand you shake. So anyway, I'll leave that part alone too. What was the difference between, say, as a contractor and being part of the regular army? Did you have the same approach? Did you have the same rules and regulations, or was Blackwater a little more Rambo-ish? So
we were a little more liberal with our use of force for sure. So, when you go over as a military unit, you get your rules of engagement, and you kind of know what you're going to be doing. And then there's so much bureaucracy in the military. This is what a lot of people don't realize, is that you'll show up 7 hours early for a 10-minute, drive down to a different base because the military's got to check everything. Blackwater was the opposite. We did not get anything that said, hey, these are your rules of engagement. What we got was, you have a very important person in your convoy. It could be anywhere from a senator, it could be the ambassador to Iraq, it could be lower level guys. Get him from point A to point B and get him back alive. That was really our entire goal. So the way that we did that was violently, right? Get out of my way. Like, there's videos on YouTube. You can see we always move traffic out of our way. We were exceptionally liberal with our use of force when it came to being able to stop vehicles, because we didn't have those restrictions. Now, the good of that is that, hey, we kept everybody alive. The bad of it is that when you're driving around in Suburbans and you're ramming people off the side of the road, or you're, shooting at engine blocks or tires so that the cars will stop, you're not exactly aligned with the military's desire to help build this nation. All you're doing is pissing people off. So that's what we did. We went out there and pissed people off, and then the military would have to go in and try to assuage the angst and the anger of these individuals. So if you look at us and what we did a good job at it. But at the end of the day, I don't think we were a value add. Putting civilians in a combat zone that don't have a chain of command and do not coordinate with any of the forces is probably not the way to win a war.
Prigozhin, I think, he was also a private contractor. Is there a place for private contractors in this day and age?
Actually, it's getting bigger and bigger. Eric Prince was in DRC. He was in Peru. He's all over Africa. Haiti, he got a 10-year contract there. And that's just Eric Prince. It's exploding. I just saw that The European Union just signed a British company to do diplomatic security in Afghanistan. Why they still want to be in Afghanistan is beyond me, but somebody's making money on it. What it's become is not a positive or a place necessarily as much as it is how we're doing things. It's now become the status quo. So if you don't want to put boots on the ground, I'm sure in Australia, the UK, the US, we don't want to put boots on the ground. We're tired of wars. But hey, we don't care if we put contractors on the ground. So what do? You got UG Solutions out in Gaza that's delivering aid because we don't want to put boots on the ground. So you're putting US civilians in the same danger without the same protections. And I don't think it's the way you want to wage combat. But I also don't have a vote. So I guess I can complain about it.
Why are the governments doing this? I mean, it's is it just basically because they haven't got the manpower or the willpower, or is it just down to, as you mentioned, down to someone's going to make money? If that's the case, it doesn't augur well for the future, does it?
No, what it is that there's two positives if you're in the government or you're in parliament. The one is that you don't have to put boots on the ground, so your policy is not going to lead to the death of a US soldier. If a US soldier dies or any soldier dies, it's going to make the news and people are going to say, why did we have people there? So you don't have to do that. That's the nice part. If contractors die, they say, oh, those guys were there for the money. It's not a big deal. Nobody would have thrown me a parade if I came back in a body bag. Let's be honest here. The second thing is that when something bad happens, those same government figures do not have to say that was my fault. They say that was the big bad Blackwater that did that. Or, they're using it in Gaza, and there's a ton of reporting out there. And I don't know how accurate it is, but at the end of the day, they have this really nice scapegoat in UG Solutions in SRS to say, those are the ones that are doing it. It's not the US. Oh, we're just giving them money. And Egypt is giving them money. And Israel is giving them money. But it's not Israel or Egypt or the US. It's the big bad UG Solutions that's doing this stuff. So it gives them enough distance to be able to say, this might be my policy, but those guys aren't doing it the way that we thought they were going to. So they're the bad guys, not me. It's a great scapegoat. Let's be honest here. Like I wish I could do that with my kids. I'd be like, oh yeah, I got a speeding ticket. Oh, that's my son was driving from the back.
No, you can't do that. but you have ways of moving the traffic out of in front of you. You can just use some of your expertise from the right. Maybe not. So I'm just going into one thing here. So the private contractors or the mercenaries are paid by government who don't want to have their hands dirtied. Why aren't these things being brought out more? Because it would seem then that the government is not really the ones running the government. We do have a deep state, and surely with some good journalism, and if the will was there, all this would be exposed. Do you think, one, it will ever be exposed properly, and two, do you think it's wise that we expose it?
So I've been fighting about this for the last 18 months. So the United States used private military contractors to move children into the United States. Unaccompanied minors is what they called them, but they're kids. And then when they got them into the United States, they handed them off to these nonprofits, and these nonprofits were just giving them out anywhere. They were just sending them everywhere. We lost 350,000 children. Let's put that in perspective. That is 240 kids a day, every day under the Biden administration. That's 30 classrooms of kids coming in every day that we lost. And we're still missing 73,000 of them. So think of the biggest soccer stadium that you have, and it'll fill every seat. These kids are still missing. And they've been shown to be sold into sex slavery and into labor camps and into the drug trade. There's been massive reporting on this stuff. The problem is that nobody wants to take a look at how it's getting done. And the way that they set up these contractors, it gets so obscure that you have to really know where to look. Now, I was a private military contractor. I knew where to look for the private military stuff. But we've had people go in front of Congress and talk about it. There's more congressional hearings that are coming up, and it's still not getting any news. Nobody's picked up my news story, which is disturbing. You're not on the side of children.
Mm.
Like we paid NVM over $1 billion over the course of 4 years to traffic kids that got sent into like labor camps, and nobody wants to report on it. And I think that comes down to the news organizations are controlled by either the right or the left. And I don't think anybody wants this stuff getting out, because it doesn't look good for either one of them. When you say, oh, this happened under Trump too, this happened under Obama, it happened under Biden. Nobody wants to put that out there. And I mean, I've been in the business trying to sell books for long enough to know that you get a publicist and you get a PR person, and those are the people that get in front of the news people to sling a story. And that's why you can't get it, is because these people aren't saying, hey, this is a priority. These children that we have shown to be put into drugs and gangs are not our priority. Like it is disturbing. And I wish there are good journalists out there, and there's people that are exposing bits and pieces of it, but nobody wants to pick it up in the mainstream.
Well, what the offer is there, that if you want to do that with us and dedicate, an hour, a couple of hours a week, whatever you want, we have no fear, and we will take it on the chin, whatever happens. But the offer is there to you, Morgan. If you want to further that, please just contact us, and we're in like Flynn, as we would say in Australia. I'm not.
I will. I'll send you an email after this that has all the data on it. But the job descriptions on these private military contractor sites literally were youth travel coordinator, and you had to put car seats in cars. It's hard to say you're not moving children and trafficking children when you're putting car seats in cars, and it says you're going to move children. It's disturbing. It sucks. And I'm a pretty lighthearted guy. I mean, anybody that's read my book will sit there and say, "Oh yeah, he can make a joke out of almost anything." I can't make a joke out of this. It's freaking disgusting.
It is, and it's pure evil too, and it says a lot about the human race at the moment too, because everybody knows about it, but I don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. And the most vulnerable are the ones who we're supposedly protecting, are the ones who are damaged goods. If somebody wants to buy your book, and by the way, I do look forward to your email. Somebody wants to buy your book, Guns, Girls and Greed, I Was a Blackwater Mercenary in Iraq, or other books, how do they do that?
Just, you can go anywhere and get it, but Amazon is usually the place where you can get it the fastest. And there's an audio book out also. If you want to actually read about the personalization of combat, along with all the downtime and the jokes and everything else, this is a ground perspective of war. And I think a lot of that stuff gets lost when you have these generals and these journalists that write books about war. But like, it's literally my lived experience, and I'll tell you when it sucked, and I'll tell you when it was great, and you'll laugh, and at times you'll just be like, holy crap, I can't believe that guy's still alive.
And you've come back with that at Twitch.
Well, yeah, I don't show it when I'm on the news.
Terrible. I'm a terrible person. Sorry about that. Morgan, Lerette, thank you very much for your time. God bless you, and look forward to that email. This is The World Today.